So we've added React Router to NoteHerder, and we've added a route for app. How about routes for sign in and main? How's that grab you? Where do you think those would go? Where are we choosing between those two? App.js, we basically choose between main and sign in based on whether we are signed in. But it seems like they should really be different routes because they should have different URLs. Sign-in page should be /sign-in or something like that. So let's try making that happen. What do you think we're going to have to import from React Router DOM? Route seems reasonable. We're choosing between a couple of things, right? So what else? What did we say we use in just vanilla JavaScript if we're kind of choosing among a bunch of options and we only want one of them? A switch, right? So yeah. Let's get route and switch from React Router. And let's see what we can do. So down in our JSX, I'll leave this stuff here for now till we figure out what we're doing. We're going to want to switch. This is the switch component in React Router. We'll put a couple routes for these things. So route path equals /sign-in. I like that URL. Component equals sign-in. And route path equals /notes. Now main is getting a bunch of, actually both of these are getting some handle auth. We don't even use handle auth and sign in anymore, do we? So we don't actually need that prop. Thought I took that out earlier. I think I did in the afternoon class. Sign in doesn't actually need the handle auth prop anymore. So saying component sign in is fine. But main takes a couple of props. So we can't just say component equals main, can we? So what do we have to do instead? What's our alternative? Instead of saying component equals whatever on a route. Yeah, give it a render method. In which case we can just put some JSX. So we can say render equals, and then yeah, put an arrow function in there. And this arrow function could just return this JSX, just like this. Why not? Seems reasonable. So now localhost 3000 isn't showing us anything. What about localhost 3000 /sign-in? Now I get the sign-in page localhost 3000 /notes gives us the notes page. So now it's no longer tied to our authentication. It's tied just to the URL, which is not where we want to end up. We want the URL to update, but we also want it to be based on whether you're logged in or not. But that's a step in that direction. We've added the routes. Add routes for sign in and main. May seem like it works worse than it used to at the moment. So we really want to redirect based on authentication status, right? We were doing that before using that ternary. We'll kind of do the same thing again, but a little differently. So part of what we want to do now, we do want to still do it conditionally based on whether you're signed in, but we also want the URL to update. We don't. Here's what we could do. We could use a render method in both of these and just put a ternary in there like this. So let's go ahead and make these multi-liners because this is going to get a little messier. I'll wrap this in parentheses. Here's what we're rendering. So let's make this one render as well, sign in. So we'll say render equals, it's going to be an arrow function. The body of the arrow function is going to get complicated, so I will put it on multiple lines. So for right now, it's just sign in. But we want it to show sign in sometimes, and sometimes we want it to show notes. Even if you browse to the sign in page, if you're already signed in, it should just show you your signed in view. Have you ever had that experience on a website? You're not signed in, you go to the login page, it skips the login page, it just takes you in. And vice versa. You go straight to some deep link and it kicks you out to the sign in page. So we want the same thing to continue to happen even though we've got routes. So what we can do is have our render methods just do that ternary that we used to do. So we could say this.signed in. If it's true, then we don't want sign in, right? We want main. And we're going to want to pass props to that, but for the moment. So get it. Even if you visit the sign in page, if you're signed in, we want it to take you to main. If you're not signed in, we want to take you to sign in. Similarly, if you go to /notes and you are signed in, then we want it to do this. Otherwise, we really want it to show you the sign-in page, right? And of course, we know we need all these props up there, so for the moment, I'll copy them up there. So whichever route you go to, it's going to show you main if you're signed in, and the other if you're not. So there's really kind of no difference between these two yet. But does it make sense why I did this much? This is basically what we had before, right? We replaced all of this with just this. So we've just added routes to it, which meant we kind of had to put this in there twice. So it maybe seems unnecessarily complicated so far. So right now I am on /notes, but it's still showing me the sign-in page if I sign in. My URL is still /notes, but now I'm signed in. And if I go to /signin now, it still just renders the same view. So now it's back to being based on our authentication status. So these routes aren't really doing us any good because you're still going to get the same thing whichever one you view. And which one you get is based not on the route, but on your authentication status. So how we want this to behave differently is if your authentication status is kind of in the wrong state, that is, you view the sign-in page, but you're already signed in, or it's in the wrong state because you view the notes page, but you're not signed in, we don't want it to just render the other component. We want it to redirect you to the other route. So that's the thing we need to change. We want to actually redirect you to the other route. And wouldn't you know it, React Router includes a component called redirect. And the syntax is kind of like a link or a nav link. You tell it what to redirect to. So if you're on the sign-in page and you're already signed in, we don't want to render main. We want to redirect to /notes. See the distinction? If you go to /signin and you're already signed in, we don't just want to render main on the sign-in page. We want to actually redirect you to the other route. Similarly, if you visit /notes and you're not signed in, we don't want to just render the sign-in component. We actually want to redirect you to the sign-in route. Now these aren't exactly the same and they make a lot more sense. Let's see it in action. So now we're on /notes. If I go to /signin, it redirects me to notes because I'm already signed in. If I sign out, now I'm on the sign-in page. If I go to /notes, it redirects me to the sign-in page. Can't view notes, can I? So that's more the behavior we're expecting when this happens. Make sense? If I'm signed in, then I end up on /notes. Because when our authentication status changes, then I end up hitting this redirect. So redirect based on authentication status. Questions?
Did you import redirect?
Yes. Also from React Router DOM. So we're importing route, switch, and redirect.